Hi there, this is Matt at State of Flux here with a review for Batman Returns. This is Tim Burton's second movie and in some parts an improvement over the first and in other parts kind of a downfall. I think narratively speaking it is not as creative or interesting or as firm of an adaptation of Batman as the previous film was. That said, as a work of Tim Burton that is a reflection of who Tim Burton is, his themes, what his interests are, this is a brilliant encapsulation of Tim Burton, the filmmaker, the kooky guy that makes these movies about people who are broken weirdos who are trying to discover themselves through other broken weirdos in a world that isn't meant for them and is strange and alienating. And for my money, this is the best looking Batman movie. Maybe there are some stagnant shots that don't work. A lot of those have to do with the action beats, but in terms of how this movie is photographed, the use of camera and how it weaves around is almost Sam Raimi-esque. It has a kind of lyrical fluidity to how the camera moves and how everything is staged, up until there's a moment where characters in costume have to confront one another and then it looks a little weird. So it's both the best looking Batman movie out of the entire roster of all of the Batman films, but also kind of arguably the worst looking one because whenever these characters in costume are staged next to each other and having to confront one another, it looks very television. I don't know how to do this, so I'm just going to put them directly in front of the camera and hope it looks alright, kind of stagey. Or like people playing with their action figures and you're getting like full body shots of it. And it happens multiple times over throughout the film. The final confrontation outside of the sewer, like at the broken down like zoo or whatever, between Penguin and Batman, is possibly the worst shot part of the entire film. But I'm listing a little too negatively here, because I don't necessarily feel too negatively about this movie. I think the first hour of this film is fantastic. It is tightly written, engaging, interesting, and the only thing holding it back is that it is a Batman movie. And if you are a fan of the comics, you're looking at that weird-ass Birdman, and not to be confused with Birdman played by Michael Keaton, but the man-bird, and the woman who is bit to life by radioactive cats. That's just not Batman in the comics. Penguin is a well-dressed man with a somewhat prominent nose who is a dapper gangster, which is why he's called the Penguin. And Catwoman is quite literally just a cat burglar. But looking at the first hour of this movie, not necessarily as a Batman movie, but as Tim Burton mind-child, it really works. It works better than most Tim Burton movies do. This might be my favorite Tim Burton idea movie, where his ideas really just get pushed into the forefront, and his guiding hand in the screenplay is very obvious. He was given essentially an unlimited budget to make his mind-child real, and so he didn't care that he was playing with other people's toys, he just executed the concept, and he did so in a really interesting fashion. The next 40 minutes of the movie kind of sputter out a little bit, and get just overly grotesque. We're talking Penguin biting the man's nose with the spritzing blood. The suspension of belief it takes to get to a place where you feel like anybody in Gotham would even remotely consider voting for a man as repulsive as the Penguin is pretty staggering. But then again, not to lay my own cards down, we did vote into existence a whole Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and various other folks, so maybe it's not that inauthentic. That said, he's stepping off my political soapbox. Even though I dinged it a little bit, the confrontation of Batman and Penguin at the zoo forward really works. So it has a great first hour and a great final 20 minutes that make the movie sort of sing and soar. Its best benefit, and the one that I didn't talk about much in my first review because I was kind of saving it for this, is Danny Elfman's exceptional score. For my money, this is Danny Elfman's best score, and the fact that he laid down 89 minutes of music for this 2 hour and 6 minute film, and it feels like like a symphony, is honestly what it feels like. It is orchestral music done to the most powerful movement that it could. And by movement, I mean it moves your emotion. It guides your hand. It takes you through the motions of a film that really work for it. The score used for Catwoman in this is some of the best music I've ever heard. It's haunting and beautiful. And I love it. I haven't talked about Danny DeVito, Christopher Walken, or Michelle Pfeiffer, but all of them are phenomenal in this movie. Danny DeVito gives, I think, one of the 3 best performances of any Batman villain. I don't like his interpretation of the Penguin, but the performance work there is undeniably phenomenal. It's almost as good as what Heath Ledger did for the Joker, and I think it stands shoulder to shoulder with what Colin Farrell brought to the same character of the Penguin in The Batman. I think those performances are jaw-droppingly good, and all worthy of awards. Christopher Walken is doing a great job at Christopher Walken in this movie. Holy hell, he is great. And he is honestly the true villain of the film. He's the one that's masterminding both Penguin and also, to a lesser extent, creating the chaos machine that is Catwoman in the film. And so Max Shreck, is the true villain of the piece. In original screenplay drafts, his character was actually Harvey Dent, who was going to be a little more of a crooked DA rather than like Batman's fierce friend. And knowing that was his original plot, it kind of makes sense that is how the character should be. And it's kind of too bad they didn't bring Billy Dee back for this role. But if you're not going to bring Billy Dee back, I like the invention of a new character. I like the nod that this film has to Max Shreck from Nosferatu. And I think Christopher Walken is grand and always a pleasure on the screen. Then you have Catwoman. Catwoman steals the show. Every scene she's in is the best part of the movie. She is good, captivating. Michelle Pfeiffer brings it. I didn't include her with those 3 previous ones because I think, with the exception of Heath Ledger, she eclipsed them. She brings her own vibe to this movie that is so captivating and magnetic that you just want more of her. And it wasn't lost on me that this was considered to be possibly a launch point to her own franchise. And I wish we had gotten a Catwoman movie. And we didn't. And that's all I'll say about that. I'll review the Catwoman movie coming up. That said, there was a screenplay written for this interpretation of Catwoman, and that screenplay was still not good, Definitely better than the Catwoman that we got with Halle Berry. And you can find it online. I think it was written in around 96, maybe it was 95. But you can find it online, and it's fine. It would have been more fun to see more of this Catwoman, is the long and short of it. I like the haunting backstory that was brought about for Oswald Cobblepot. In the beginning, first, 10 minutes of this movie where you see this monstrous, grotesque child being birthed to these people, and their response is even more monstrous and grotesque than how the child looks. Their complete abandonment and revulsion of this baby is shocking and monstrous. And the only thing that I wish that the movie would have done narratively is circle back to that and maybe have him confront his parents in a maniacal way of some kind. But the movie doesn't really go there. And it's also kind of fun to see Paul Rubens. I like Paul Rubens. What else is there to say? I love the Christmas aspect of this film. I always loved how this film feels, and it has that strict sense of Christmas time. Christmas time is very unique because of how its iconography is presented and is so familiar to everybody stateside. It was nice to see Gotham City in that light. So that was kind of neat. But I'm stretching here. What else is there? Oh, the thing that I keep forgetting to talk about. Batman. He's in this movie, and it's kind of apparent why Michael Keaton wouldn't have wanted to come back, especially under different leadership. He trusted Tim Burton, and when Tim Burton was not asked to return, and he gave Joel Schumacher a different consideration for the character, it makes sense that Michael Keaton would hop off this, because, as I said with the first one, it's kind of a thankless performance. You don't really get to play Bruce Wayne because he's put up so many defensive shields that you can't really know the internal Bruce Wayne. And when he's Batman, he by and large doesn't talk. So it's just a presence that you have to attain for a movie. And, well, Keaton would revisit it with The Flash, it makes sense that he'd hop off. However, I will say that if of any of the early Batman films, Batman Forever is the closest one to offer Bruce Wayne's side of things anything to do. So it's kind of weird that he hopped off on that journey, and it would have been interesting to see that. But as a goodbye to this Batman for a while, it is kind of bittersweet. I think Michael Keaton does have ownership of this solitudinous character that has these defensive walls that doesn't even open up to Alfred. He's just as stoic as the scowl on his cowl. Yeah, so Michael Keaton's quite good. The use of Batman is pretty strong. I like his suit in this. I like the shape of the body of the suit better in the first Batman movie, but the cowl now fits his face and it doesn't have like rubber extending beyond his chin. So this one fits him better. Again, Batman is just as lethal as ever. He straight up blows up a dude with a grenade, so that was interesting. But I liked his love story with Selina Kyle. That stuff worked for me, by and large. I like this movie's just general callbacks to other films. There's quite a bit of play with the Elephant Man and whatnot, and this acts like a dark sister to that film. But also, in doing so, is a little insensitive to it. This is a person embracing uh, deformity in a monstrous and grotesque way, whereas that film asks you to humanize that which is already human, and we have deemed subhuman. And that's why that is a considerably better movie than this one. So anyway, I digress. I like Batman Returns. I think in many ways it's an improvement over the previous film. It's infinitely more watchable. I think the first hour of this film is damn near perfect, and the last 20 minutes really works for me. That middle 45 minutes really does kind of bloat the film out and stretch believability with a little too many obnoxious scenes. I'm not a fan of the whole Penguin driving around with the Batmobile thing. Just didn't really work for me. But as a whole, it's a more enjoyable watch than Tim Burton's first Batman. That said, I think Tim Burton's first Batman has more iconic scenes, but also is a more rounded narrative with a beginning, middle, and end that flourishes organically than this one that kind of starts and stops and asks a lot of the viewer. So yeah, I by that token, I think they're about the same. I'd maybe edge this one above that one just a little bit due to the rewatchability factor. But I do want to end on, so I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I do want to end with one final note, and that was when I was watching this movie, my daughter came downstairs. And I had to laugh because she's 7, almost 8, she'll be 8 next month. She started picking the movie apart. She's never seen a Batman movie besides Batman 1966. And we were watching, and it was the ballroom scene between Selina, Kyle, and Bruce Wayne, where they're the only ones not wearing masks in a room full of people wearing masks. But of course, they are wearing their masks because it's Bruce Wayne when he's really Batman, and it was Selina Kyle when she's really, at this point, Catwoman. I like the visual show don't tell of that scene. But back to the story. We're watching, and she gets a glimpse of Penguin, and she was like, "What's wrong with him?" And she's like, "I thought you said he was like well dressed." And mind you, she's used to the Burgess Meredith interpretation of character. And I was like, he is. This is Tim Burton nonsense. And she's like, "What does that mean?" And then I had to kind of explain that and who Tim Burton is and Edward Scissorhands and all that stuff. But she was like, "Oh, God, his face, he's so gross." And I was like, "Hon, you've seen this actor before." And she was like, "No, I haven't." And I was like, "Yes, you have. You're a big fan of the movie Matilda, the 1995 movie." And I was like, "He was the dad in that movie." And she was like, "No, he wasn't." So then I'm pulling up pictures, and she was like, "Oh my God, that is him." And so she was just like completely blown away by that and how amazing the makeup was and the teeth and the black goo from the mouth and all that stuff. Then the dance is continuing. They have Selina and Bruce have their moment, and then all of a sudden the ground explodes and the duck starts rising up, this big rubber duck, and she just turns to me and goes, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "It's just so stupid." And I was like, "Why?" I burst out laughing. I was like, "Why do you say that?" And she's like, "They could have at least made it a giant penguin. Why is it a big rubber duck? That's not even on theme." And I was like, just in shock at how A, astute, and B, like, mature that use of language was. But she, or it wasn't on theme. It's not even on brand. That's what she said. And I just burst out laughing, and I'm like, "You're right, hon." And she's like, "It should be a penguin. Why isn't he riding a penguin?" And then I tried to explain the whole circus thing, and she was like, "Nah, that's dumb. it should be a penguin. And I'm like, honestly, honey, you're writing a better movie than the one we're watching. You should really work on that. And she's like, I will. So I'll let you know what she makes when she writes her better Batman movie someday. But anyway, let me know what you think of Batman Returns. This is a weird movie in that it's clearly worse than the previous movie, but more watchable, and also kind of better, while also being visually dazzling. I like the use of how it's almost just a black and white movie with hints of blue throughout, but then you have like the bright yellow of the duck. Like the color scheming is great, and when red shows up, oftentimes it's blood, and it just really is vibrant. I like everything in Selina's room, where she's everything's pink and beautiful and feminine, and she starts painting it black and stuff like that. That's really kind of neat. And the film tries to land a really strong feminist take on the character, and it, for its time, works. Works enough anyway. But like all this stuff that is good that I'm praising, like, it is a good movie, but it's also, there's just something about it that kind of holds it back. Kind of like my feelings with that first 1989 Batman. There's so much going for it for a lot of stuff to kind of hold me back. This is the best looking Gotham City in this movie. I think this, still to this day, the shots that we get of Gotham City proper is the best looking stuff. But there you have it. And also the CG bats and stuff with that, early CG, look pretty good. They hold up really well and on like 4K and whatnot. So, what do you think of this movie? Do you like it better than Batman 89? Do you think it's worse than Batman 89? I've talked to people that think this is the worst of the 4 Batman movies produced in the 80s and 90s. And I can hear that argument. But I think it's the furthest from accuracy of the comic material. So coming at it from that lens, I get it, but it's very watchable. And if you're watching it through the lens of the author, the director, the Tim Burton of it all, this is one of his best movies, probably easily his top 3 or 4. So. Yeah, it depends on your relationship to this movie, much like my relationship to this movie. It depends on the lens you're viewing the film with. So which lens are you viewing it with? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and peace.